We're the Lucky Hawkeyes, and today we're going to be talking about the TSA screening process. While maybe not all of us have missed a flight in our lifetimes, we've all experienced the frustration and the inefficiency at times with the process in general. So through this presentation, we hope to use class concepts to examine why this is and how this process could improve. But first, some introductions from each of the team members. My name is Rahul, and I'm going to focus on the process overview. As far as the objective for our presentation, we would look for solutions as to how to improve TSA wait times. And as far as the focus of this process, it's specifically the passenger security screening process. We're defining that as when the passenger arrives into the line where they wait to get their ID checked, as well as the process where their bags are examined and go through security, at which point the process ends, which is a process that we'll examine in more detail in future slides. And our goal is to analyze this process using operations concepts we've learned so far in class, and in the process, identify inefficiencies and recommend improvements accordingly. So to reiterate, we define the start of the process as when the passenger initially arrives at the security checkpoint. Of course, this will vary based on if you are a TSA pre-check member or not, but when you enter the line at that point is where the process starts. And the process ends once we enter the secure area post-security, after which, of course, you would need to go through the process again should you depart. And based on the way we define this process, the input would be an unscreened passenger as long as their belongings traveling together, and the output would be the screened and cleared passenger as well as their belongings.
Our step one is the arrival and queue entry. We're not starting with obtaining a boarding pass because the TSA does not control obtaining the boarding pass. The airline that you're flying on does. So we are focusing only on the TSA portions of processing through an airport. So you arrive into the queue and you wait for your turn to have your ID and travel documents checked. This is a work in process area. Passengers typically are in a snaked queue at this point leading up to the verification kiosk. You get to your travel document check station where a TSA agent is going to check your ID and your boarding pass. Most US airports use facial recognition software to have an additional security step. You depart this area as a confirmed traveler with your identity having been verified. You then move to preparation for screening. In some airports, you might end up waiting a bit before you can move into preparation for screening, but most of the wait comes after preparation for screening. This is where you remove items like your laptop, your belts, any liquids. Depending on the airport, you will also remove large electronic devices and possibly your shoes still. After putting all of these items onto a conveyor belt to go through the X-ray machine, you move to a waiting area. This is another work in process. This is where verified passengers spend time waiting for the available screening capacity. That feeds into steps 6A and 6B that run simultaneously. 6A is your carry-on items, and those items that you removed pass through an X-ray machine and are either cleared or flagged for additional inspection. At the same time, passengers move through the body screening area. Again, you walk into a large cylindrical area, hold your arms over your head, put your feet on the yellow footprints, and wait for the millimeter wave scanning. Both 6A and 6B are conducted simultaneously and in separate but adjacent channels. Then you move on to a secondary screening if needed. If the passenger is flagged, TSA performs a more detailed inspection, which can include a pat down. If needed, passengers are moved to a private screening area for more thorough resolution. Also, anything that is flagged in step 6A with the X-ray, TSA agent will ask the passenger to remove items from a bag frequently to have a more thorough inspection. From here, passengers move to the last waiting. Here, passengers move to the final waiting area where they typically are waiting for their items to come out of X-ray. Once you collect your items, repack everything into your carry-on bag, put your shoes and belt back on, you are then allowed to move into the secure area, the terminal.
Through the steps that Raul and Josh explained, it pretty much highlights the transformation that happens as each passenger moves through the TSA screening process. At the beginning, the passenger enters as an unscreened traveler, meaning they haven't gone through any type of verification or security check. As they move forward, they become a verified passenger once their ID and boarding pass are checked and confirmed. This step is important because it ensures the right person is traveling and allows them to continue through the process. Finally, after completing both the baggage screening and body screening, the passenger leaves as a fully screened and cleared traveler, meaning they are approved to enter the secure area of the airport. What's important to recognize here is that not every step in this process adds value. The steps like ID verification and screening are necessary and directly contribute to safety, so those are considered value added. However, a large portion of the total time spent in this process actually comes from waiting, whether that's standing in line before screening or waiting for an available capacity at the checkpoint. That waiting time doesn't add value for the passenger, but it makes up a significant part of the experience. Because of that, it becomes one of the main contributors to long TSA wait times and represents a key area where improvements can be made.
The Department of Homeland Security provides historical data on TSA wait times. Their last comprehensive update took instances of 20 to 30-minute wait times from 2006 to 2016 for 386 airports, both regional and larger hubs. While we can't see specific wait times by step, this information can show us airports that had the most issues with long waits and examine the seasonality of those delays. Across more than 10,000 observations, most locations experience relatively low counts of these types of delays, with a median of just 3 occurrences per month. However, the distribution is highly skewed, with certain airports and time periods showing substantial spikes, indicating that congestion is not evenly distributed across all airports. A clear seasonal pattern emerges in the data. Moderate delays are most common during the spring and early summer months, with March showing the highest average frequency, followed by May and June. In contrast, January and February consistently exhibit the lowest levels of congestion. This suggests that travel demand during peak vacation periods and spring break contributes meaningfully to increased wait times. These patterns highlight the importance of seasonality in airport operations and the passenger experience. Looking at the time trend, the highest levels of 20 to 30-minute wait times occur in the earliest part of the dataset, particularly between 2006 and 2008, with several peak months in 2007. While this may suggest that TSA congestion has improved over time, the information isn't detailed enough to make that assertion. The number of reporting checkpoints varies significantly from month to month, which affects the total count. As a result, normalized measures such as the average number of delays per reporting period provide a more reliable basis for comparison over time. Finally, the analysis reveals that a relatively small number of airports account for a disproportionate share of moderate delays. The main offenders are the regional airport Golden Triangle out of Mississippi, followed by larger hubs such as Chicago's Midway, Seattle-Tacoma, Tampa Bay, Buffalo, Philadelphia, Chicago O'Hare, St. Louis, Milwaukee, and Hawaii's smaller Kona Airport rounding out the top 10. This indicates that congestion is influenced not only by airport size, but also by operational factors, demand patterns, and potentially staffing or infrastructure differences. Overall, the data set shows that TSA delays are typically manageable and become concentrated in specific locations and time periods, reinforcing the importance of targeted capacity planning and seasonal preparedness.
I'm going to be going over the recommendations for the TSA process. Number one would be increasing the number of TSA agents. The easiest way to improve the flow through the system is to lessen the time spent waiting in queues to advance to the next productive station. This would mean increasing the number of TSA agents, checking tickets and identification documents. For smaller airports where there's relatively few flights, such as Des Moines, Iowa, passengers tend to arrive in batches based on their departure time. In these airports, agents would be temporarily moved from their primary assignment to a verification station to process passengers and then return to their primary function once the surge has been cleared. For major hub airports like Chicago, O'Hare, or Atlanta, Hartsfield, that serve several orders of magnitude, more passengers per day, additional officers should be surged to inspection stations during the busiest travel days of the year and the busiest times within each day. It's actually pretty easy to identify the surge with all the historical data we have. Another recommendation would be to increase the number of X-ray machines and operators. So the big piece of this is if space allows in these airports, and alluding to the before mentioned shifting personnel when needed. So if The line was short and they needed some more people on scanners. They could get more people working the scanners and then more people working the identification process once again if they had a surge of people needing to get through line. And the last recommendation would be to expand the usage of CT scanners. This is a computed tomography scanners. These scanners provide operators with 3D images of the baggage. This speeds up the process while allowing easier detection of explosives and prohibited items. Another way that this would improve the process is you would not have to take off all of your belts and everything else like we currently do with the current scanners. In addition to the security benefits, these scanners allow passengers to keep liquids and the computers in their bags, and would reduce the need for individual bag searches. Currently, the issue here is that only 255 of the 432 airports across the United States have these scanners installed. So at the end of the day, with more funding and scheduling, we would be able to help improve the times to get through the TSA lines.
Hey guys, we're the Lucky Hawkeyes. Just want to say thank you for watching our video and want to remind you to like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.